What's good, YouTube? Cardfight King here, Aqua Life Baby. You already know how it is. So, for today's video, guys, I wanted to give you guys my analysis on Thavas, Lambros, and the deck that's coming out in the in V set 11. Um, I've been doing a heavy amount of playtesting between, when the stuff came out. You guys saw my reaction on stream. I was kind of on it, but we're trying to still figure things out. So between then and now, I've gone through a multitude of different builds, done a lot of playtesting, theorycrafting, working with my Force of the Ocean brothers to figure out where this deck is going, what does it want to do, how are we going to be piloting the deck, what kind of builds can we use, for it and whatnot. So I'm not gonna come out with my final build of it until till we actually get the physical cards. Between now and November 20th, which is right around my birthday. I was born on the 23rd of November. I'll be doing a lot of testing, play testing, using other decks like Shahara, Night Rose, and other things as a measuring stick, as well as decks from the set, such as like Shiranui and Shiranui, Big Belly, whatever else may be, to see how we stack up against a lot of decks. Overall thoughts and opinions on the deck. I think this is a very good deck. Like, initially things were started off slow. We had a really bad thought about the deck. It really wasn't flowing, but that's because it was day one playtesting, and then as we started to learn about the deck, test other matchups, things like that, we started to really enjoy this deck. And I can honestly say that this is the absolute most fun rendition of Aquaforce, but also probably the best rendition of Aquaforce we've seen in V series. It is, I believe, a very strong deck, and something that is, just right. Initially, people say, oh yeah, it's just kind of like Ravon. It takes a concept from Ravon, modernizes it, and just makes it a whole lot better. Whereas Ravon wanted to have things rested when he attacks. This deck uses the resting abilities as utility, and then readies up an attack for everybody. So you're going to get utility, power-up effects, resource management, all that through your resting abilities, retiring opponent's board, and then, you start going into attacking everything, and the deck just starts to flow so well, especially as we start figuring out our build, getting our pieces together. It feels clunky at first, but once we start getting once your build starts to feel a little bit more natural to you, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is really good. And it also magnifies a lot of certain cards from that have been released in the past before. This deck really magnifies them to a much greater degree, and makes them possibly the most relevant cards in the deck, and one of the strongest attacking columns that we've seen in Aquaforce. And we're going to definitely get into that. So I kind of just wanted to go over the cards, their roles in the deck, for this video. I know that a lot of people have compared this deck to Maelstrom, and I can honestly say this deck is harder to play than Maelstrom. Maelstrom is more or less a high roll kind of deck, and I'm gonna do a comparison between this deck and there. But this deck is definitely harder to play as far as unit placement, attack patterns, in just from a deck construction standpoint than Maelstrom is. But you reap a much higher reward and value for doing things correct with this deck than you would with Maelstrom. And I will explain I'll explain that in another video when I go over a Maelstrom analysis, and then I'll do a comparison analysis between Thavas, Lambros, and Maelstrom. So definitely stay tuned for those videos. Now, getting into the actual deck, I wanted to start off with the stars of the deck, Thavas and Lambros. Thavas, I'll start off from the get-go, carries this deck. Thavas really carries this deck. And the reason why I say this is because I believe he has the strongest retire ability, or the freest retire ability. He, on Vanguard or Rearguard, You rest a card, pop a card on your opponent's board. He can rest himself to pop it if he's in the rear guard circle. So literally he is a rear guard for free that gets to rest a card, which goes into the abilities of everything else, again going back to that utility, and then pops the card on opponent's board. His other ability is at the beginning of your battle phase, if you have 3 or more cards rested, you can discard a card and ride Lambros from your deck. And the Lambros gets 10,000 power and an extra drive check. And then at the end of the turn, you retire that Lambros, rewrite a grade 3 from your soul. Obviously, you're going to be just rewriting Thavas because it's a 4 grade 3 deck. If you're not on Thavas, you're not going to win. And then you get another gift. So this deck definitely wants to play Excel too, because you're going to be drawing for riding him for the turn, and then riding him then rewriting Thavas at the end of the turn. Just outstanding, fantastic is what we want to see. You don't miss. Like, if you call out multiple thousands to the board, you don't really miss rewriting your Vanguard. Again, that was the issue with Ravon. Where Ravon, it requires you to have a commitment of cards to the board, and sometimes, depending on if you have the G assist or your hand, whatever it is, you would have to come in Ravon. And Ravon is vanilla on the board. He didn't really offer you anything other than an attack just to rest himself. And you needed to have another grade 3 in soul in order for Ravon to actually be somewhat of a threatening unit with an extra critical. However, in this deck, you actually are promoted to use your Thavases more offensively, calling your multiple grade 3s to the board, resting themselves or another card in conjunction with like Narissa or something to pop a card on your opponent's board, and then when you ride on top of Lambros, and who we'll get to in a second, they can ready up for another attack. So Thavas is really one of the strongest cards in this deck. He can almost board wipe your opponent, between that turn and your next turn if your opponent leaves them on the board. He's outside of like just resting a popping card, yeah, he might not do anything, but that's going to get very annoying for your opponent, noticing that their board is getting picked off left and right, and he can take care of interceptors, for certain attacks as well. So so I'm really happy about the design of this card and what he does for the deck moving forward. And again, you don't miss rewriting him from your hand, because he rewrites himself to keep getting you Excel 2 circles while we run Excel 2, so you can keep drawing cards. And then you'll notice throughout this deck definitely draws a lot of cards. You're definitely going to go through your deck. So again, it took a while to get this, but you're going to have no shortage of hand advantage here. This deck is pretty nice with that. And then we go into Lambros. Now Lambros is the other star of the deck. He's our main offensive play in a way. So his ability in hand, if you're on a Thavas Vanguard, again, if you're not on Thavas, then he's a dead card. But with Thavas on Vanguard Circle, he's an attacker. Now, you're not going to be using this ability a lot to call him to the board, unless you're in a situation like you're playing against Blade Master, playing against the Tord Cannon, spamming Kagero player, or anything like, Narukami maybe, anything like that, where you're gonna just need units on the board because we want to fulfill certain conditions. But the fact that he's versatile enough to have that option is good. And as I've said in a lot of my deck profiles and everything like that, every card in my deck needs to have a role, needs to be versatile and play one role or have multiple roles that they play in the deck. I don't want any card to be dead in my deck at any point. I want everything to be live and ready to go. So the fact that he can come out, even though all his other abilities are on Vanguard Circle, the fact that he's able to come out and serve as a rest target and or attacker just adds to his versatility. So he's not a dead grade 4 in hand like Chrono Tiger Rebellion, for instance. His other ability is that when he's placed, you choose any number of your rear guards and stand everybody. So again, for all the wrestling you do for utility, for Thavas popping cards, for Narissa restanding and getting power, for Penguin giving power, all that stuff, he restands everything. So he readies things up for attack. So like I said, Thavas is there to set up and use utility, pretty much like teeing everything up, and then Lambros is there to hit the home run, restand everybody, and we're all going in. And then the other ability is kind of, I think this is where some people get hung up about this card being like, you know, somewhat lackluster in a way. Him being kind of like a worse version of himself, or like Shaharlet does it better, something like that. Whereas that when he attacks, you counter blast one, soul blast one, and you choose a column, stand all of the rear guards in that column, and if your opponent has a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, those two units get both of them get 5k power. So I can understand where you come into the play as like, that's not that great, but in this deck you have like a lot of columns, especially when you look at like Coral Assault and Narissa. These columns get very big, and the way that a lot of your attack patterns work is basically being able to swing with everything, and then swing with, like, you have like one big column. Like I said, for instance, if you use Narissa's skill with him, that's 18 and 15. That is a 33k column right here. You can just like swing 33, restand, +5/+5, swing 43. You know, this is without hitting triggers or anything like that. So you're swinging with and a lot of what this deck focuses on is your regular rearguard columns. So not so much your Excel circle attacks, but your regular rearguard columns, which is why, you know, cards like Narissa, Barragios, and whatnot are very important, because you're gonna have like one column. You're gonna have like one column that hits for a truckload, and that column is going to be attacking twice. Your Vanguard is going to be at 25k with Thavas' ability. Any type of booster, an 8k booster puts it at 33k. So this deck definitely hits some really strong numbers, and you can get a lot out of it. And so I think his ability is a bit underrated, but it definitely fits the playstyle and what you want to do with the deck. Plus, this is like the best artwork in the game, so you know, there's that. So after looking at these two, the rest of the deck should make a little bit more sense. I want to go to the grade 2 lineup. Looking at the grade 2s, not going to talk too much about Coil Assault, just know that he's the best attacker in the deck. A column with Coil Assault being a base 24, and then if you use Narissa just once, and obviously in this deck, with a lot of the resting things that you're going to have, you can abuse Narissa's ability and keep giving her power. Restanding her multiple times, giving her power. Now that is going to cost quite a bit of soul, which you're going to need for Lambros, but you know, you can do that and make that column big and swing twice. So it's a, you know, her, you know, being a minimum of 18k, with him being at 24. That's like a 42k column, you know, just with one restand for Narissa. If you use Lambros, that's 52k. So you're going to be hitting some pretty beefy numbers for an Excel deck as well. So yeah, he's just so good. And obviously both of them go into Soul and you draw a card. So he gives us Soul, which is a much needed resource in this deck, which is Soul. And draws a card, so we get a card back to our hand. And there's also a way to get him to the board, so that turns into a free plus. So, yeah, he is the best attacker in this deck, and easily should be a 4. And like I said, I'm not going to get into what my current build is for it yet, but just spotlighting the cards that, you know, you're going to want to see. So then we get into Kelpie Rider Dennis. Now, Kelpie Rider Dennis is one of the first triple rares we see for the grade 2 lineup for this deck, and he has a simple ability of just resting another rearguard and calling the top card of your deck to the rearguard circle with a hard once per turn, and he can use this on the Vanguard or rearguard. So easily, he's probably our best grade 2 target ride. That's what we want to ride on our turn 2. And both him and Thavas are both searchable by Nikki, but we'll get to Nikki when we get to him. This card, I thought was a 4 of, initially. Still playing around with ratios, obviously. But he gives you a free card to board, and again, against matchups like, you know, Vanquisher, probably Full Bronto when it comes out, Kokoro, and other things that are erasing cards off of your board, Luard, whatever it is. This guy giving you a free card, and if your opponent just allows him to exist on the board, he's good. He's just a gift that keeps on giving. Resting a card for utility to get another card for free. So you can just ripping a Coil Assault and a wrist off the top of your deck is just super good. But that's about it. He doesn't really gain any power. He doesn't really do too much outside of that. So through testing, I've noticed that, like, depending on the matchup, his role either gets magnified or minimizes, just depending on the matchup, depending on your board state and setup and whatnot. So he's a good card and a much needed card for this deck, but I don't know. We're still working on the ratios for how important it is to see this card game after game. I think you want to see him game after game, but he might not have the most important role. Again, he doesn't really offer you anything offensively. He's purely just a utility card. And then we can actually get into another interesting card that I had to walk back my initial thoughts on. So it's Terrific Coil Dragon. So I guess initially I would say before everything else was revealed, I thought this card was extremely good. And it is. As a standalone card, if you attack on the first battle, Soul Blast 1, restand him, he gets 5k power. And he gets 5k power if he's just restood in general. So that's obviously really good. So, when Lambros restands him or whatever it is, he just gets that 5k power. It's once per turn, so add some balancing in there. But his ability for Soul Blast 1 restand, on the first battle of the turn, initially I thought that, he's still a good card. Being able to go off of that, I think he definitely probably has a place in a Ravon deck if he played in Ravon. I think that he opens up a lot. He opens up a grade 2 game for this deck. Being able to ride Dennis, you can rest him. You can rest Terrific Coil to get or not rest Terrific Coil, but you can rest something else to get a free card to board. Terrific Coil could swing for 14, Soul Blast 1, restand himself. I mean, there's you can get off 3 attacks. There's a lot that you can do with Terrific Coil Dragon in this deck. And but his Soul Blast cost is what kind of more or less scared me off in a way through playtesting. When I initially was testing him, trying to manage Soul between using Narissa, using Lambros, and then using Terrific Coil, it was very, very clunky, and I find myself where it's well, dang, I'm all out of Soul. I can't really, I'm not doing too much because I'm running out of Soul. And then it's kind of just okay, well, what do we have to do? We have to think, slow down, think, compartmentalize. What cards, depending on how much Soul you have, what cards are you going to value for Soul? Obviously, Lambros is your first choice. You want to make sure you have enough Soul for Lambros. Then your second choice for using Soul is Narissa, and then Terrific Coil comes third. So he's your third option for using Soul during the turn. Now, obviously, Narissa and Coil Soul definitely fill up the Soul as well, so they can help mitigate that. And then there's Nikki, who is arguably the most important, one of the most important utility cards, if not the most important utility card in the deck. But I found myself getting into a Soul Blasting issue when trying to utilize Terrific Coil every turn. But I realized that his place in the deck can serve as a 14k beater. You don't always have to use his skill, especially depending on your resource situation. Again, this is where that thinking comes to the deck, where it's not you could just slap cards down, use all their abilities, and just go in, whatever it is. You kind of have to think. He's definitely a rest target. If you're not going to use Soul, he's definitely a rest target that you want for your Thavases, for everything else. Because when you ride Lambros, you restand him, he'll gain that 5k himself. So he'll be a decent 14k attacker. And what I was thinking of him was man, if I could just utilize him just a little bit more smartly, he could find his way in the deck. So I've been testing him out. Initially, I cut him out of the deck because I was just it's too much conflict with the Soul, with everything I'm doing. But then then recently I've tweaked the build I had, tossed him into the deck, and I'm just okay, cool. This card definitely has some potential, and I'm definitely getting a decent usage out of him now. He opens up a grade 2 game for us. He can make a pretty decent pretty decent Lambros turn. We can poke it, we can blow up the intercepts with Thavas and have him poke in for some damage, whether it's a card in hand or a damage or whatever it is. So, you know, he can definitely be a very decent card for us. But again, he's going to go through more testing. I'm not sure about where I want him at as far as a ratio standpoint, because again, you prioritize your soul for Lambros than Nerissa. So he still needs to definitely go through testing, but so far, I've been having recently some very positive results with him. And then last but not least, for the grade 2s, we have Aggie. So Aggie is a simple card. Counterblast 1, rest 2 rear guards, and he gets 10k until the end of turn. So I like this card because on a regular rear guard circle, he's a 19. Excel circle, he's a 24. But for Counterblast resting 2 cards, like you can rest Nerissa, he can rest himself. He gains 10k and will sit at, instead of, you know, a base of 19. I didn't have a high opinion on him. I thought he was like a meh card. I thought he was just for like Jumbo, Dragon, and Premium and whatnot. But then, you know, talking with Wave Nation really kind of opened my eyes to Aggie. You know, it was like, okay, yeah, this card actually works. This card is very good. So we tested him out as 4. We started cutting him down, putting him back up, just trying to, again, still trying to figure out the ratios for this card. But I think he's a really good card in the deck. I think definitely has a spot at the very least a 2 of, but I really enjoy the plays that he makes in the deck. Obviously, if you have to get into a conundrum with your counterblasting, you want to preserve, you want to make sure that Lambros is first priority for your counterblast and soul blastings, but Aggie definitely works with a lot of what the deck wants to do. Gets you 2 cards rested, which can include himself. And it's a very nice effect, really decent beater, and I think that he has a place. And then for the grade 1 lineup, so for the grade 1s, we have the grade 3 Searcher. We all know what the grade Searcher is. It's a 4 grade 3 deck, so you want to run 3 to 4 copies of this card. I can say that once you do get your grade 3, you're not really going to want to search out a lot of your other grade 3s. Your other Thavases at this point would generally be, you know, at least in a game flow sense, most of the time your Thavases will end up becoming rear guards because of his Vanguard rear guard ability. Again, why I think he definitely helps carry the deck. But and you're not going to really rewrite him unless, you know, you have a plain hand, you got that hand, and, you know, you can kind of go in with it. But otherwise, you know, he's definitely serves as a really strong rear guard, and you want to be able to, if you search him out, that's kind of where his role is. Otherwise, once you do have Thavas in hand, his usefulness really kind of goes down, and he just serves as a very nice, like, 13k booster. But that's really about it, all he offers. And then we have Penguin Soldier. So Penguin Soldier found his way back into the deck. Penguin Soldier hasn't been in the deck since, I really want to say, set 1. I know some people played him when Glory came out. I know I did initially, but you know, as you got more control over your counterblast usage and things like that, you realize Penguin really, he ended up getting cut from the build. Especially when the support for Vandy's came out. But he definitely found his way back into the deck with this set. Being a self-rester, giving something 5k, and then having that decent countercharging ability, he definitely found his way back into the deck. And actually, I found my congratulations promo copies of him, so pretty happy about that. I'm going to go add that to my proxy deck. But he's an interesting card. So when essentially he gives a column boost. So if you put him in like a column with like Aggie, he can rest himself, give him 5k. Aggie does his skill, so Aggie will be at 24k on the regular rear guard circle. Then Lambros will restand everybody. So now, not only did the Penguin give 5k to something, but Lambros also restood him, so now he can actually serve as a booster. The important thing is that if you're going to be using his countercharging skill, you want to make sure you set it up for the 4th battle, which means that you want to swing with his column the first, second, or third battle of the turn. because when you swing on the fourth battle, that needs to be a column that you're not planning on restanding, and that you are going to be utilizing his skilling if you're planning on doing his counter blast or his counter charging skill. And that's something that as a player you need to determine before you enter your battle phases. Am I going to be using my Penguin Soldier's counter charging skill now, or am I just going to try and keep him on the board to keep making plays for later until I need it? So that's just you as a player needing to make that decision before you enter your battle phase when you have Penguin on board. Also, that gets into the other thing of setting up your columns. You don't want your Penguin Soldier column to be your main column, your most powerful column. You want that to be the other column in the rear guard, so that when Lambros restands, you're restanding your strongest column, so that swings twice. And then we're going to look at, I want to skip Nikki for now, just Nerissa. You already know what Nerissa does. It's just that Nerissa was good in Ravon, so much better in Thavas and Lambros. This is the star of the grade 1 lineup as far as attacking goes and whatnot. It's just, she is just an outstanding card. Getting to utilize her multiple times in a turn, and she is easily whatever column she's in, and you really want her on the regular rearguard circle, but whatever column she's in, that's your Lambros restand target. That is your column that you restand with Lambros, because of her ability. She is just outstanding in this deck. And she is an easy 4 of. There is no if, and, or buts about it. Easily a 4 of. Such a great card. And again, I just love the fact that she was used in Ravon, but improved and is so much better in Lambros Thavas. And then last but not least, we have Kelpie Rider Nikki. Now, Nikki returns. As you know, he was a Strife fodder. So I was watching DPP channel, or David Ping Ping. When he was doing his Yasui deck profile, he said something interesting, which was about Wisteria, which is the same kind of Yasui searcher. Which is that so this card and her have the same ability. Search top 7 of your deck when you ride on Vanguard Circle for Thavas or Dennis, and Dennis is obviously the grade 2 card that rests a card and grabs something from the top deck. But his other ability is where he shines the most. As you know, we're kind of like striding or whatever it is onto Lambros, and then at the end of the turn, you're going to get your rewriting Thavas, getting your Excel 2 circle, drawing a card, and Lambros is going to the drop zone. And if you damage check your Lambros copies, you just need Lambros in the deck when you enter your battle phase because you want to be able to use it to rewrite Thavas. What he does is he rests himself, so again, utility, resting himself for an ability, to put a normal unit from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, and then soul charging card. So he gives you back soul for using Nerissa, for using Lambros, for using terrific Coil. He gives you that soul. And he also puts normal units in the bottom of your deck. So you mainly use him to recycle your Lambroses, getting your Lambroses to the bottom, soul charging 1. So then when you open your battle phase up, you ride onto that Lambros that you put at the bottom of your deck. It's kind of like playing a deck. If you're playing with like the cross, you want Torrid Cannon because you want Torrid Cannon to put back your ends to the bottom of the deck so that you can use the cross's ability to Soul Blast 1 and put that same end that you put at the bottom back into your soul for the ability for the turn. Same kind of concept. But the cool thing is that he's not just limited to Lambros. So if you don't have Lambros in the drop zone or anything like that, you could be like, okay, cool. Well, I can recycle my Nerissas. I can recycle my Coral Assaults. Get them into the deck. When you search your deck for the Lambros, you're shuffling. So you're getting these cards starting to circulate back again. So what Nikki does is allows a lot of your rear guard, especially Nikki, Coral Assault, and Nerissa, for you to have the chance at using them multiple times and seeing them more often throughout a game. he's such an important card and you want him on the board. If I'm an opponent and I'm like sniping, taking out cards on my opponent's board, Nikki is one of those cards. Nikki is probably the first option that can come to mind of me taking out, because this literally is the card that keeps the Lambros literally flowing on, you know, during the battle phase. So he's just such an important card, but very good overall. I don't want to exactly ride him all the time. I prefer to open up with him with Thavas or like a barrage or something. But you know, if need be, you do ride him. You get that free top 7 search. But he really shines in the rearguard circle. But that's it for the analysis, guys. I know we had Toto come out. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. This is Cardfight King, Aqua Life Baby. You already know what it is, and we're out.